Michael Dixon. Mr. President and my dear colleagues, in the heart of the city where stories unfold, Henry Siraki Dixon, NjenjeMedia TV shining bright. I represent Bayelsa West, senatorial district from the corners of the globe. Mr. President, connects us together. No I rise with a heavy heart, but nevertheless, with gratitude to God Almighty for the gifts of such an incredible and iconic leader of our people, a nationalist par excellence, and a champion for justice and equity, and for a better Nigerian federation. Pa Edwin Clark, OFR, CON, who yesterday, early hours of the other evening, joined his illustrious ancestors and was called to glory by his creator. Mr. President and my dear colleagues, I know that these sentiments of sadness and gratitude to God for a life well spent is shared by all of us in this chamber and across our nation and even beyond. Pa Clark's life is an open book that has been read over and over, examined and re-examined for different purposes and by different personalities. And so, his main achievements and the highlights of his illustrious and long career are very well known. A number of people, particularly those who are just getting acquainted to what he did in his life, in his later years, his long life, 97 years, an uncommon age. It's not everyone who can live to that age, and even at that age, retaining his faculties and serving. As we say, no leave, no retirement, no leave, until the very last day. And so younger people, particularly in a nation that struggles to study history, may only look at his contributions in the context of PANDEF, one of the very last initiatives of his. But before then, Pa Clark not only served meritoriously as Commissioner for Education in the then Midwestern states, he also became Commissioner for Finance under Ogbemudia, even though he had been assisting unofficially the administration of Ejo, who was the military governor at the time. Thereafter, as a result of his outstanding contributions and services to our people, he was identified by the then head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, who promptly appointed him, then called Federal Commissioner for Information, a role he played diligently and in a manner that endeared him to his boss, and they remained very close up until his last day. After serving as Minister of Information, Pa Clark served in different other capacities, but also ran elections, joined the NPN. Well, they were the backers. They were the big people behind NPN at that time, and supported the administration of President Shagari. Then he now ran for Senate, as we have been told. So here is a man who traversed the entire gamut of national service. As a matter of fact, the secondary school I attended, government secondary school Torebeni, in my local government, was built by Pa Clark when he was Commissioner for Education in the government of then Brigadier Ogbemudia. Some may not know this fact, but the present Bayelsa State, my senatorial district used to be part of Western Region. My senatorial district. The two other senatorial districts were part of the then Eastern Region. We became Midwest, from Western Region, Midwest, Bendel. So growing up, after flying the flag of chanting General Gowon, the military administrator we were calling and marching for was Brigadier Ogbemudia, then Colonel Ogbemudia. The secondary school I attended, and they had a healthy rivalry. When I asked him why they built that kind of secondary school with boarding facilities in my local government, he said because it was a border community. Across it was Amasoma in the then Eastern Region, and that became River State. So Ogbemudia and his colleague and friend, King Alfred J.T. Smith, were competing. So they all had to build good schools that will showcase what they were doing. So standing here, I am a beneficiary of the foresight and commitment and dedication to duty. Most of the schools in my area, secondary schools, primary schools, were built by these hard-working, dedicated gentlemen. He was a commissioner, Ogbemudia was his governor. So as we give credit to him, we also give credit to his boss, who gave him all the support. Now, Pa Clark became a lot of things. He wasn't a self-styled Njenje leader. No, let me correct that. He was our acclaimed national leader of the Njenje nation. Until his passing, was chairman of the INC board, the Njenje National Congress Board of Trustees. And Mr. President, I served as national legal advisor almost 20 years ago of that body. Pa Clark and his colleagues set up the South-South People's Congress, SOPEC, which Mr. President, when you were commissioner, and one of the key leaders in Akwa Ibom were all part of. Then he and his colleagues set up the Southern Nigeria Forum, Southern Nigerian Leaders Forum, which he, until his death, was chairman. And they had also the South and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, which again he coordinated as chairman. And then few years later, Pandef. All these were his attempts at bridge building to see that Nigeria is transformed, that whereas we remain a nation of nationalities, that in the words of our current national anthem, it used to be our old national anthem, but it has become our new national anthem, which says, though tribes and tongues may differ, one brotherhood we stand. That was what Pa Clark believed in. And when he and his colleagues, and I'm sure, Mr. President, it won't be too long before we will take tributes about his dear friend and compatriot, one of our respected fathers, Pa Adebanjo, who passed 3 days or 4 days before him, as if, almost at the same age, as if these two fathers and iconic leaders had a discussion and said, well, we've spent all our lifetime fighting for a better Nigeria. Time to depart. And both of them used to say for those who had the benefit of being close, who were mentored by them, they used to say they were in the boarding, was it? That they had collected their boarding passes, just waiting to board. So, Mr. President, here was a man who gave the entirety of his adult life to the service of our nation for a better Nigeria, an inclusive Nigeria, a Nigeria for all, not a Nigeria for some, a Nigeria that will be like other nations that will leave our country and fight for visas to. They fight to enthrone justice and fairness and inclusion. We sometimes resist change, and yet we admire them. But these are people who want Nigeria to be like those nations, and if even better. So, my dear friends, we have lost an iconic leader and father, and a bridge builder and nationalist par excellence. I join on behalf of my senatorial district and our people in paying tributes. And I know that there are so many programs lined up, which I'm part of them. And we will be notifying Mr. President of the Senate and all of you so that at your own time, find time to be in some of these events all the way through till we take his remains to Keagbado. But the lesson remains. They've left a Nigeria for us to continue to build a nation of fairness, a nation of oneness, and a nation that will build to be one of the greatest nations on earth if we work together to enthrone justice and fairness. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, let me just Chief Edwin Clark was a pan-Nigerian. So I've heard from Major Nation. I've heard from Urobo Nation. Let me hear from the corner, one of our elder statesmen, former governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency Governor Adero, now distinguished senator and one of the landlords of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, Mohammed Ademo Alero is my name. I represent the good people of Kebbi State. Mr. President, let me start by extending my condolences to the families of late Pa Ike Clark and also the government and people of Delta State, and indeed the whole of the Niger Delta region, because he is an acknowledged leader of the entire Niger Delta region. Pa Clark was a nationalist by excellence. He preached unity, he preached brotherhood. He was a bridge builder, bringing people from different ethnic groups in order to live in peace. I recall our interaction with him during the 2014 National Conference, and he made a brilliant presentation on the challenges facing the Niger Delta: environmental degradation, oil spillage, and what have you. And we all sympathize with the people of the Niger Delta on the travails they are faced with. And that presentation made the conference to come up with a resolution that the federal government of Nigeria should do whatever is humanly possible to mitigate the environmental degradation of the Niger Delta. Pa Clark fought for his people and fought for the unity of this country. And we lost a dream. We lost a leader who is irreplaceable, because people like him nowadays are very, very rare. So, Mr. President, I mourn the death of Pat Clark. On the issue of fighting for minority, even though he is a nationalist by excellence, he always fights for the right of minorities, which is normal in a federation like ours, because we have unity in diversity. And he remained very consistent in that fight. And we will remember him for what he stood for, that is the unity and stability of this country. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
Senator Njenje, you made the discussion halfway. Are you sure what you want to say had not been said? So let's give you 1 minute to just say something, because I think the elder statesman has done justice to the memory of late Pa Edwin Clark.
Mr. President, thank you very much for this unique honor and recognition. I came in, signed, went out, and then came back. And that I want to register my sincere condolences. And I also want to put it on record that I sent a text to Senator Joel, my friend and younger brother, to have me included in this particular motion, because this motion is all about Niger Delta, and it's about Nigeria. And unfortunately, maybe Joel has not seen my text. And when I scanned through the list, I found out that my name is completely missing. I want to put it on record that I'm a co-sponsor of this very, very important motion. Mr. President, like I said, Edwin Clark is not about Niger Delta alone. If you are a minority in Nigeria, Edwin Clark inspires you. If you are a minority in your own state, Edwin Clark inspires you. If you are a minority in your local government, Edwin Clark inspires you. If you are a minority in your ward, Chief Edwin Clark inspires you. Wherever and whenever he speaks to the power that be. I met him a couple of times. Mr. President, every time I hear him he speaks for the downtrodden. He speaks for his people who have been marginalized over and over and over and over. And therefore, for Nigeria and Nigerians, and for those leaders who are aspiring to be like Edwin Clark, they must transcend beyond ethnicity, beyond religion, beyond regionalism, because Edwin Clark speaks for anybody who finds himself in a degradation manner, in a marginalized manner. He speaks for so many people, unknown to so many people. When he speaks for all those people that have been marginalized. And therefore, on behalf of myself, the Bauchi Central Constituency extend a profound condolences to this great man. Just 10 days ago, we missed Sir Adebanjo and now Edwin Clark. I begin to wonder how Nigeria would be without some of these people who are actually provided checks and balances to the power that be. One thing that aspires me, that impresses me, is that Edwin Clark is not a person that you call a government in power. Those people that follows government every now and then. He speaks the truth and he challenges those people. He challenges the status quo. I think Nigeria will miss him. I am sure he has created a very wide vacuum that is really, really difficult to fill. And I hope Mr. Senate President seated there will also borrow from Edwin Clark and try to provide this serious gap. You have demonstrated capacity for Nigeria, and therefore you need to carry on. Not seeing yourself from Akwa Ibom, Niger Delta, Southern Nigeria. These are the opportunities. These are times, Mr. President, that some of you who are there should stand up and be counted, because this country needs people like that, and therefore all the limitations that he had during his lifetimes, you have the opportunity, other people have the opportunity to fill in the gap. We are going to meet this man, a great man, and may his soul rest in perfect peace, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Njenje, you almost abused the Senate President, but I allowed you because you are one of those that happen to have been trained by Edwin Clark. And I'm happy that he left people like you behind, because I see you with other leaders taking pictures of recent. 2 weeks ago, you were in Mina, and I think a few days ago, I saw you with your colleague leaders of the other divide taking pictures. So we are waiting for you in 2027. Let me hear from the Middle Belt, the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, without sounding like a broken record, I want to say that the only thing that is missing in this motion is my name. And because, Mr. President, the story of Chief Edwin Clark is the history of Nigeria. And today, it is very sad that we are losing him at a time when his wise counsel is most needed. Mr. President, a little example is about the contributions of Chief Edwin Clark in the various conferences, constitutional conferences, that gave birth to what we, the new generation of Nigerians, are enjoying today, called Nigeria. At a time when many people were advocating for separation, for division, for confederacy, Chief Edwin Clark and his co-travelers stood for Nigeria. And so, history will be kind to him to say that Chief Edwin Clark certainly was one of the formidable founding fathers of modern Nigeria. And Mr. President, I will not end this contribution without mentioning Chief Edwin Clark, his PANDEV, the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, and collaboration with the Middle Belt Forum to speak for the minority communities in Nigeria. And so it is not wrong, therefore, for anybody to say here that Pa Edwin Clark definitely was a bridge builder, because he represented the voice for the minority communities in this country, even as he advocated for a united Nigeria. And so I want to say, therefore, that Pa Edwin Clark was a stickler for justice, fairness, and equity. But as we always say, we are not configured by God to live forever. And so a time comes when we must leave this space. And so this time is the time for Pa Edwin Clark to leave this space, but not without leaving very indelible marks in the sands of history, so that when the history of Nigeria is written even 100 times, the name Edwin Clark will feature prominently in the history of Nigeria. And so it is our prayer for those of us from the Middle Belt, for those of us Pan-Nigerians, to remember a nationalist called Pa Edwin Clark from Niger Delta that advocated for the whole of Nigeria. And so we pray that God grants him a merciful judgment and a place in his kingdom. I wish him to rest in perfect peace until we meet not to part anymore. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. President.
Thank you. Let me just hear from the Southeast and then we end. Distinguished Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is NjenjeMedia Baribe. I represent Abia South and I'm chairman of the Southeast Senators Forum. Of course, we cannot but also join our colleagues and everyone who has spoken today to eulogize Pa Edwin Clark. We know and we also acknowledge his contributions to Nigeria, and especially, as has been pointed out by everyone here, his fight for the we call them now, the marginalized and the underprivileged, and those who have been done badly by the country called Nigeria. Today, as we pay tribute to him, we can also urge each and every one of us that it's just not enough to praise him and say that he's a fighter for our rights, but also for us to imbibe those qualities that he encapsulated in his life. He spent a very long life fighting for the poor, fighting for the underprivileged, fighting for those who have nobody to fight for them in this country. And we join in praising him for his sagacity and for his steadfast courage in speaking truth to power. Sometimes some of the things that he said came across to us, especially in the Southeast, as somebody who only cared for those from the South to the detriment of others. But when you look clearly at his contributions, and when you come close to him, because at the point I was minority leader, we had cause to meet with him and have interactions with him about the direction Nigeria was going. And he always had this implicit trust that Nigeria will be better than it is today. When we come to the prayers, we're also going to make some amendments because prayer number 2 says, send a condolence letter. I don't think that this Senate will only send a condolence letter. I think the Senate should also send a delegation to the burial of this great man, having also been a senator in this chamber. So I use this opportunity on behalf of the Southeast to say adieu to this great man, and may his demise lead to a better state of this country called Nigeria. I so submit.
Thank you. Let me thank all my colleagues for their contributions, and to say that amongst the sponsors of this motion on the demise of this colossus, this Iroko tree, political Iroko tree, in the person of distinguished Senator Edwin Clark, welfare, CON, on 25th day of May 1927 he was born, and he left on the 17th of February 2025. Is the Senate President, Senator Godswill Obodokwabio, GCON. And I want you to delete Senator Okpebola Monday from the list of those who sponsored the motion because he's no longer with us. He's now a governor, so he can do that under the governor's forum. So please delete his name from there. Joel, did you hear what I said? I said delete Okpebola. He's no longer with us. He's now a governor. So he will do his own condolence under the governor's forum. I think all that needed to be said had been said. So let me thank Governor Siraki Dixon, thank Joel Onawakwo, and all those who have spoken, particularly our elders in this Senate, starting from distinguished Senator Alero to distinguished Senator Baribe, and the very upcoming elder of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Njenje, for their speeches and eulogies on the demise of this iconic statesman. I had the luck of making Edwin Clark a bit happy with development, not just when I was a governor, but when I was a minister of Niger Delta. I was able to work with contractors to complete a 26-year-old edifice that was meant to be the headquarters of the Oil Mineral Producing Areas Commission, UNPADEC, started in 1994 and abandoned. I was able to work and complete it. And I know that Edwin Clark personally wrote to me. He was a man who was excited about development. He wanted to see a better Niger Delta. He wanted to see a better Nigeria. Then I also had the opportunity to do concentric 11 kilometers of roads around his domain using the interlocking system because of the terrain that could not carry asphalt. And when that was commissioned, he said it was a surprise that after decades of struggle for development, this was the first time he was having a road in his own area, a road within his domain. So when we go for the obsequies, you'll see the interlocking roads infrastructure that we were able to put together for him under the Niger Delta Development Commission. I can recall how excited he was on that day. And then a lot of people may see him as an activist, but I would rather say that he was a man who lamented over the state of Nigeria. He was pained that Nigeria, with the resources available, should have done better than we did. He saw Nigeria as a sleeping elephant that should actually have been a moving giant, a lion in the Committee of States in Africa. Edwin Clark did his best to fight for the rights of the minorities across the entire country. So he traversed from Niger Delta to the north, from north to Middle Belt, and tried to unite them And he tried his best in a plural system like Nigeria with different ethnic groups. You can imagine in a place like Adamawa alone, we have well over 97 ethnic groups in Adamawa state alone. So one man took it upon himself to stand all the way in Delta State to fight for the rights of those minorities. And for some of us from the majority tribe, we may not know how deprived it could be to belong to the minorities, even in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of amenities, and in terms of even patronage in different places. Even sometimes you will belong to the majority tribe like the Ndigbos, and you still suffer the same fate. So you can imagine what Edwin Clark was fighting for, and always on television. He had a very strong voice. His voice resonated above the age of 90. At any point in time when Edwin Clark speaks, you see the passion that he was speaking about Nigeria. And then, I don't know, the voice never went. So today, we have lost him. He has died with a very strong voice that resonated everywhere, and then a voice that every Nigerian child, whether you are 50 years and below or above, will always recognize that that is Edwin Clark, Edwin Clark speaking, when you hear it on television or on radio. We miss him in Niger Delta region. We miss him in Nigeria. I pray to Almighty God to give us another Edwin Clark that will stand for the rights of every Nigerian, irrespective of your tribe, irrespective of your creed, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of whether you are a minority or a majority. And of course, when we read through his different books, you will see the travels of Edwin Clark and his efforts to bring about a just and egalitarian Nigerian society. And so today the Nigerian Senate mourns with the family of Edwin Clark. We mourn with the Yabodo community. We mourn with the Ijoland. We mourn with Delta State in particular. We even mourn with the senatorial district of my brother, Senator Siraki Dixon, that we didn't know was part of the Midwest, despite being in the Niger Delta. Little wonder that your wife is from the Southwest. So you were already, so honestly, so now I know if we have to do what we did during the MPN days, when you are too strong, we send you back to Cameroon. We say you are not from Nigeria. I know where to deport you to. I'm telling you. So the Nigeria did better than the colonialists. Those ones will just come to a community and cut you into two. This group belonged to Cameroon. This group belonged to Calabar and all that. I was in Cote d'Ivoire a few weeks ago, and I was shocked to realize that the Ashanti people were also in Cote d'Ivoire. So they did not just cut them, they bargainized them, some in Cote d'Ivoire, some in Ghana, and some of them in Senegal, but the same Ashanti people. So Africa was partitioned without regard to your ethnic affiliation and without consultation with our forefathers. But like I always say, and I will say this on the demise of this great man, that a child of rape should not allow the circumstances of his birth to mar his future. We must manage Nigeria. We must come together in brotherhood to develop this country and just take it as the will of Almighty Allah that we should all remain together and we must work together for a purpose of bringing unity and development to ourselves and to future generations. May His grace so rest in perfect peace. Let us look at the prayers. Observe a minute silence in honor of Edwin Clark for his services to our nation. Those in support of prayer one say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. send a letter of condolence that has been corrected by the distinguished Senator. Just take it for the purpose of the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. An amendment to Prayer 2, send a Senate delegation to the family and people of the government of Delta State for his funeral obsequies. I so submit.
Any seconder? Yes. Distinguished Senator Karimi.
Thank you, Mr. President, my colleagues. My name is Karimi Sunday Steve. I represent the people of Kogi West. I hereby second the amendment to the motion to the prayers moved by my distinguished colleague.
Prayer 2 has been amended to say send a strong delegation to commemorate and attend the burial obsequies of late Pa Edwin Clark from the Nigerian Senate, having been a member of these hallowed chambers. Condole also with the good people of Ijaw Nation and the government of Delta State. Those in support of Prayer 2 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3 urge the federal government of Nigeria to immortalize him by naming a national monument after him. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, I would like to urge us to now rise and pay honor to the memory of this iconic statesman, Pa Edwin Clark. The great soul of Chief Edwin Clark, OFR CON, who died on the 17th day of February 2025 at the ripe age of 97, rest in perfect peace.